شكرا. Okay. So, we'll be talking about separate compilation, abstract data types, and class templates. So, C++ allows you, C++ allows you to divide the program, the C++ program into parts. So, what are those parts? Actually, actually, in big applications where many persons are collaborating together to produce this application. So you will find mainly three roles. The first role is the one who designs and who codes the classes as definitions. What does it mean? What does it mean coding the classes as definitions? It means that he or she will write what so-called a header file. What so-called a header file. And this header file actually contains the definition of the class. And what is exactly the definition of the class? So Nadia, can you tell us, or can you tell us what is the definition of the class in general?
وانا مش عارفة in general لان انا متعودة على الكودينج بس يعني
لا
كلاس
not
هو
in
بيقول لي
general
مثلا
يعني.
انا عندي نعم
قولي.
كلاس مثلا ان انا يكون عندي يعني زي الكار مثلا او البوك او الحاجات دي وبكون ان انا عارفة الاوبجكتس بتاعته اللي بتميزه الكلام ده بس انا مش عارفة
اوكي.
بالظبط
طيب 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 first to implement a class, what we are usually doing is writing two things. The first thing, the header of the functions without real implementation. And the second thing is the attributes of the class. I will give you an example about this. So, Nadia, can you, not this example, okay, let's look together, Nadia, at this example. What is the class here?
it's
Look at the,
bank account
exactly. What did I do here? Forget about the comments out there. What did I do? I wrote
included
what?
functions اللي هما the user can see.
Yes. Did I provide a C++ code for the implementation of those functions?
No, I just wrote the functions only.
Yes. So this is what's so-called a function header. So I didn't provide anything about the function. I just wrote the name of the function. And what are those, Nadia?
private variables المفروض ان انا initialize جوه
Yes,
الكلاس
yes. No. Just 1 second. So private variables. So those are member variables that belong to the class which is called bank account. Yes. So
yeah.
so the whole of this part is called a class definition. So what's really a class definition? So the class definition, it means that I write the function's header, I write the attributes, I write public and private, and that's it. Then later on, I define the C++ code that will implement those functions. And then I will write the main function that will test this class or will use this class. So how many parts did I, just be with me, Anand. How many parts are there inside one file? How many parts did we see together?
3 parts.
3 parts. Who said 3 parts? Ali?
Yes.
Yes, Ali. What are the 3 parts?
The header.
Yes, the header.
Then the code where we declare or where we write what's in the function, and then the int main.
Yes. Does anyone, I will repeat what Ali was saying. Thank you, Ali. So the first part is the class. The second part is the function, the implementation or the C++ code for the functions that exist on the class. And the third part is int main. So there are 3 separate parts. And actually, C++ allows us to write each one of them in a separate file, to write each one of them in a separate file. The first file will contain the class definitions, the functions, and the attributes. And this is basically this part. And this is basically this part. It's basically this part. So basically, those are the functions that exist. Did I provide the code to implement set and update and get balance, get it? No, I didn't. So I just defined the class. I defined what's public. I defined what's private, and then I ended the class. So this is called, ya jama'a, a class definition. And then this can be in a separate file, a class definition or a class header, and this can be in the first file. The second file that we can separate things. The second file is the implementation of the functions that exist in the class. What do I mean by the implementation? So I have a function here called set. And then there's a semicolon. So the actual C++ code that implements this function, I can write it in a separate file. So I have this set function, and then this is the C++ code for it. And then I have another function, which is set, an overloaded function. And here, this is the implementation. I have update, I have fraction, I have get balance, get rate, etc. So this is called an implementation file. So this one file that is called 10.05.cpp, I can make it 3 files. One is the header file. The second is the implementation file. The third is the file where the main exists. Right. Again, why do we do this? We do this because when you have large application, someone only thinks about what are the classes that will exist in, what are the classes that should exist to solve a given problem. So his job is to think of what are the classes that exist, what are the functions, the function header, what are their input and their output. So only the class definition. And then the second person will go get the header and start writing the C++ code for each and every function that exists in the class. So this is called an implementation file. And then it comes the third person who wants to build an application that uses this class. So he will write the int main function and he will just use those classes. What is the benefit of this? The benefit of this is that there are rules to be done when you have a large application. This is number two. This is number one. And number two, that there are people who are specialized in building libraries, like IOStream, for example. So for IOStream, it has cout and cin. Okay, do you know that how cout and cin are implemented? No, I don't know how they are implemented. I don't care. I, as an application developer, will use cin and cout. So I will include the header file, but I don't care how they are implemented. Someone else who is specialized in building a library will care about cout and cin. In large corporations and even in medium corporations, in medium and large software houses, there are people who just think, I want to build a mathematics library. So he just think of functions. What is the input, classes and functions? What is the input? What is the output? Some other one thinks how to implement those functions. And then a third person will build an application using those libraries. So anybody doesn't understand what is the general idea about dividing C++ files? And in your project, because it's a big project, and even in some assignments, you will divide the code. The first one into the classes definition, the second one into the implementation of C++ functions and classes functions, and the third one where you have the int main. Okay, so anyone doesn't understand generally what I'm saying?
Doctor, but this is a one-piece code, right? And you don't divide it into .h and .cpp and stuff like that, huh?
No, you divide it. This is what you divide it into, and I will tell you how to divide it now.
A header file and it's cpp and main.cpp.
Yes, I will say this. Right. Someone is asking me, why do we divide it? We divided it because when you have a large application, a team will be specialized in writing libraries, and another team will be specialized in using those libraries and build the application. Okay? We will know how to divide the file, how to divide this in a moment. Should I repeat? Okay. Okay. So once again, someone will build the classes, and this will be in a file without an implementation. Also function headers. The third one will be implementing those functions that belong to this class. The third one is the one that who will use this class and those functions. Fine. So the header file is what's so called an abstract data type. And there are three words: abstract, data type. And abstract means it's just providing a definition for the function. It doesn't provide an implementation for the function. That's why it's abstract. So this is number one. Data type, a class is a data type. We said this at the beginning. So abstract data, data type, it means implementing classes without actual implementation or C++ code for the function. Okay? When you are using CN or Cout, do you know how they are implemented? No, you don't know how they are implemented. You are just using them. So how do you use them? You simply say include IO stream, and that's it. You start using the Cout and Cn. Do you know how Cn and Cout are implemented? No. Do you know what data structure? Are they using arrays? Are they using pointers? Are you using whatever? No, you don't know. What is the data structure that they are using? You just use them based on what? Based that you include IO stream. IO stream is a general library for C++. But now it will come to a moment that you will write the library of Muhammad. You will write the library of Maya. You will write the library of Reem. You will write the library of whoever in the class. So you will define your own library, which is include my library, .h. And what is .h stands for? It stands for header. And this is what is meant by the abstract data type. What's meant by the abstract data type? I will repeat this again. So once again, you can divide your C++ code into three parts. The first part is the class definition. The second part is the implementation or the C++ code of the function. The third part is the main.cpp. In your project, how will you do this? In your project, for example, you will be implementing, for example, something like Uber. Okay, of course, on a smaller scale. So, I'll get so if the group members are Abdullah, Abdul Ati, Abdul Rahman, and another Abdul Rahman. Let's call him Yusuf. So Abdul Rahman Talat and Abdul Rahman Yusuf. So let's call them Talat and Yusuf. So what will happen? So Abdullah Saba, what he will do? He will design the classes, the functions, the attributes, and stuff like this. He will use GenMyModel. He will use whatever tools. He will do the classes, how they are connected together, and stuff like this. And then Abdul Ati will come, will see this design, and then he will write C++. He will write the classes header files. Then Talat, he will come and then pick the header file and start writing the C++ code into it. And then Yusuf will come and will start doing the int main that will use the classes designed by Abdullah and Abdul Ati and implemented as functions by Talha. So if you have complex applications, you have to divide yourself. Those people will do the design, those people will do the C++ coding, those for the functions that exist in the class, and those people will be capitalizing on using those classes and building the application. Is the idea clear? Yes or no?
Yes, يا دكتور.
Okay. So in the project, you're going to practice this in greater details, of course. Okay. So we have 3 files. The first file is called the header file. The second file is called the header file or the ADT interface. What does it mean, interface? Interface, that this is an interface file. This is a header file. It doesn't provide anything about the implementation, of the function. Then the implementation will be in a CPP file. Then the application will be in another CPP file. So you all know this part.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, yeah.
In a header file, when you declare a function, can't you also implement the function, like write the code for it?
Yes, yeah, Ahmed, yes.
Then what's the point of
Actually-
writing it for CPP? Or won't it be easier to just import the library بتاعت الheader or we use it for CPP file after we implement it for the header?
Yes. The
Okay.
answer is yes. Look, Ahmed, I am talking about the utopia situation.
Oh, okay.
Where it exists for large applications. Yes?
Mhm.
I'm not talking about small applications. I'm talking about large applications where there are some people that are known to be designers and architects. So
Yeah.
those designers and those architects, they don't know, they don't bother themselves about the C++ details, how to write a function, how to write C++, etc. They are thinking from a high level. So they are thinking of classes, about They're thinking how those classes are related together. And there are programmers who first implement what the architects have decided, and then there are users of the library that include both things. Of course, you can combine with the .h, you can combine, of course, with the .cpp, you can combine the class header with the class definition with the implementation. Of course, you can do this. However, again, I am talking about the utopia situation,
I
Ahmed, not
understand.
yes, and this is clear with big application. طبعا maybe most of you will think that the one who will write the implementation file is the big mind. No, the big mind is the first one who think what are the classes and how they are connected with each other. The second difficulty is how to implement those classes. And the easiest part is the one that will use those libraries to implement the application. Do you realize, are you convinced about this, or you think that the one who uses the libraries is the toughest job? Yeah. What do you think?
The one who implements, well, the one that designs.
Whom do you
Hmm.
think is the most challenging part? Yeah, Ahmed.
It depends على البروجرام. If it's a smaller program, it's going to take less designing, more of an effort to put into
No,
implementation.
I'm talking about large programs.
يبقى probably designing is harder.
The designing is harder.
I
And
think the
that's-
implementation is harder.
You think who are you first? Because your name. Excuse me?
Reem.
No, Yaim. You think so because you didn't master C++ well. I'm not meaning you as a person. I mean all of you. I mean, once you master the language, then the easiest part will be writing code, and the toughest part is doing the part that will involve the definition of the classes and how they are interrelated together. You know why? Because if you have a poor design, this means that your application will run in a very lousy manner. So it's all about how you design your classes and what are the relationship between those classes together. This what makes, and of course, the choice of the data structure. So if you pick something like Google, what is the most important aspect of Google? Is it really who implemented the interface and who implemented the classes? No. Actually, Google search is based on
Spying on you?
excuse me?
Based on spying on you?
Spy?
Yes.
What do you mean by spy menu?
قصدي spying on us يعني بهزر.
Yeah. لا, it does spy on us. It's not هزار يعني. It does spy on us actually. The whole purpose is the whole idea is spying on us. But actually all what you see as Google is based on an equation, and this equation is implemented by two geniuses. And then every other thing is not so challenging like this equation, because this equation is what makes Google Google, what makes Google search in less than a second. Of course, there is a part where the programmers will excel into optimizing certain function and stuff like this. But at the end of the day, what makes Google Google is an equation. It's a function. This what makes Google Google, yeah. Okay. So the most difficult part, and you will discover this in the project, the most difficult part is what are the classes that should exist? What are the functions that should exist in those classes? How those classes are interrelated with each other. This is the most difficult part. Okay. Not using those classes. Using those classes is quite an easy thing, yeah. And yes, yeah, I've seen Google spy on us, Facebook spy on us, Instagram spies on us, everything spies on us, not necessarily Google, yeah.
دكتور how do they spy on us؟ يعني هما زي access ايه بالظبط؟
Using cookies.
Camera.
No, not using cookies, of course, but they spy on you based first on many dimensions. One of them is your location. So assuming that you are in city stars, so they know that you are in city stars. So if another friend is in city stars, or a possible friend that in city stars, so they just let you
account.
present him or her to be your friend.
Yeah.
If I am calling you too much, then expect that you will be in my potential friend list. So this is something. If you like certain pages, so assuming that you're liking the political pages, for example, so at the end of the day, so they will always give you an advertisement about politics, for example. So they know your interests, they know whom you are talking with, whether chatting, whether voice calling, whether whatever, yeah. So at the end of the day, you might find out that even بواب العمارة اللي جنبكم ظهر لك في الفريند ليست. ممكن تلاقي نفسك انك انت ظهر لك advertisements انك انت
دكتور like Telegram يا دكتور.
نعم.
It gets the nearby contacts.
It gets
The nearby contacts even if you don't have their number.
Yes, I know. يعني at the end of the day, all your actions are recorded.
Including the camera.
And يعني there is one application that exists in Google called Google Activity, and it registers anything and everything you do with Google applications and with Google Mail and with Google Earth and stuff like this. It records everything. So it gives you advertisements, it gives you new friends, it gives you anything. So it spies on you at the end of the day. Anyways, so what you know so far, that you include IO stream. So this is greater and smaller than. Then if you write your own header file, then you use those double quotes and this small dot, and this is small h. So what does this mean? This means that you are using a standard library. This one means that you are using a user-defined library. What do I mean by user-defined library? It's someone written by you. What's IO stream? It is a standard library, exists in IO stream. exist in the C++ package, sorry. Right. What did we say? We say that we have a header file and we have a CPP file. This is the implementation file. And the third file is called a driver file. And the third one is called a driver file. A driver file. So, how this looks like? The following. This is the header file. This is the header file. Class rectangle width and height, set values and area. Those are the functions and those are the attributes. So this is basically the header file. This is basically the header file. And then we have the implementation file. So how many functions do we have here? We have one function and we have the second function, set values and set area. So the implementation file, you will start implementing those two functions. What do I mean by implementing? Means providing the C++ code. What do you have to do? You have to include rectangle.h. And where is rectangle.h? Rectangle.h is the name of the header file. Then it comes the program file, the driver file, the application file. You have to include rectangle.h. So rectangle.h. And then you have to write the main function. And what do you do with the main functions? First of all, you define an object that belongs to the class. And where does the class exist? The class exists in the header file. So it looks up it in the header file. Then you use the function that is called set values, where the implementation for the function that the implementation or the C++ code for set values, it exists in the implementation file. And area, it exists in the implementation file. So the implementation file, you should include the header file and implement the functions of the methods of the class. Then the program file, the driver file, the application file, you have to include the name of the header file and start defining the object to the classes and use the functions. So we have three files. The first one is rectangle.h. The second one, rectangle_implementation.cpp. And the third one is rectangle_app.cpp. Call them whatever. Call them myClass.h, myClass_imp.cpp. Call it whatever a meaningful name you want. So Maya?
I just wanted to ask, can we compile the three of them ولا بس البروجرام file?
This is coming in the next slide.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Doctor, in the implementation file, I should add also include that stream and using namespace std, right?
of course. I'm just saying that what's new that you have to include the name of the header file. Yeah. Okay, then comes what Maya was asking. So there are three files, ya jama'a, three files. So you will open in Visual Studio three files. By the way, when you start using the abstract data types, you have to forget about the online compiler. You have to use either Xcode or Visual Studio. Yeah. Okay. And of course, we will give you a lab session about this part. Yeah. So the .h file is not compiled. The .h file is not compiled. the .h file is not compiled. The rectangle.cpp, when you are compiling it, and what does it mean by compiling? It means that you change the .cpp file into an object file. What's an object file? It means that it is a machine code file. It's ones and zeros. So you compile rectangle implementation file, and then you compile also rectangle underscore abb. And what does rectangle underscore abb uses? It uses two things. It using the .h file, and it uses the functions that exist in rectangle underscore implementation.cpp. And then we have a compiler and we have a linker. If you recall from 106, I don't think you recall, but for people that recall, so what does the linker do? The linker acts
link between precompiled language and object language to be implemented for the application, or compiler translates from the source code to the object code.
Okay, so the compiler from the source code, the .cpp code, into an object code. What's an object code? It's a machine language code. And then the linker gets the object of rectangle.implementation and the object of rectangle underscore abb, and combines them together to produce the exe file. And what is the exe file? It is called an executable file. And what is this executable file? This is the result of when you run your program, it runs the .exe file. So it opens this black screen and the program starts executing. So we have two object code, and we have the linker, which combines the object code of the implementation file and the object code of the application file, and combines them together into one exe file.
Doctor, can you repeat what's the OH again? I mean the .o.
The .o is the object file. When you compile the .cpp, this rectangle underscore m and this rectangle underscore app, it transforms them into an object code. And what's an object code? It's a machine language ones and zeros. Okay. Okay. You didn't take this in 106?
No, I don't remember taking something like that.
Okay. So anything that you have to execute on the computer, Muhammad, has to be first compiled to be object code, which is a machine language, ones and zeros. And then we said that rectangle underscore app, what library does it, what file does it use, ya Muhammad? This red rectangle, it uses what?
The compiler, you mean?
No. This file, from within this file, it uses which file? This one.
The header, it takes the information from the header file.
The header file and the implementation file. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it combines them together. It combines them together into an object file. And you have another object file here. You link them together. You will find this lovely black screen appeared. This is called an executable file. This is called an executable file. Anyone doesn't understand? Let me repeat. So this lecture is easier than the previous one, of course. Okay. So let's go back to understand a new concept here. So if you look at this file, this is a header file. This is a header file. Why is it a header file? Because it has no implementation. It is just function definitions. It's just function definition. We will add to it what's so-called, we will add to it what's so-called a header guard. We will add to it what's so-called a header guard. We will add to it what's so-called a header guard. What is the benefit of the header guard? The benefit of the header guard is that if many programs has included a header file, so the variables will not be defined twice or 3 times. This sounds Chinese, I know. I will explain it. So we have a header file called rectangle.h. We have another file called rectangle implementation.cpp, and we have a third file called rectangle application.cpp. So what did I do? What did I do? So from this file, what did I do? I just include rectangle.h. And from this file, I also included rectangle.h. So from several files, I can include one header file. From several files, I can include one header file. What does this mean? This means if it happened that the compiler will declare the functions and define the variables 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. طيب بالعربي ده معناته ايه؟ عشان ابسط الموضوع. ممكن يبقى عندي كذا CPP فايل عامل انكلود لنفس الهيدر فايل. انا عايز امنع كده. انا عايز امنع كده. فبستعمل حاجه اسمها هيدر جاردز. مره ثانيه انا عندي كذا CPP فايل بينكلود 1 هيدر فايل. الهيدر فايل ده فيه ايه تحديدا؟ الهيدر فايل فيه تحديدا الكلاس ديفينيشن. خلاص انا عايز امنع حاجه زي كده. عشان امنع حاجه زي كده I include what's so called a header guard. I include what's so called a header guards. What does it mean a header guards? It means I use this keyword called hash fndef. And what does it stand for? It means hash if not defined. And then I write any name of a header guard. أي حاجة على بالك. خلاص? So if not defined, and يعني it's better to write it in capital. If not defined, my library. Then define my library. then I write the class عادي جدا. And then at the end of the class definition, I write end F. What will happen if I do this? What will happen? What will happen is that when I include rectangle.h, where is rectangle.h? It's available in this file. The compiler comes here. If not defined, if ndef, my library, then define my library. Then my library, the header guard is being defined. Then it will go into the class definition type. What if another file is making an include rectangle.f? بقت my library defined. Then it will not redefine the variable type. I will repeat for the last time. The header guards are used to prevent the compiler from redefining the functions and the attributes except for one time. الهيدر جاردز معمولة عشان تمنعك انك انت تديفاين الكلاسز more than one time. طيب ليه؟ لانك انت ممكن from within 2CBP include header file او ممكن من 10 files to include the same header file. بتعمل ايه؟ You make if ndef, put any word you want, my library underscore h, Muhammad Farghali underscore h, Reem Saeed underscore h, then define Reem Saeed underscore h, and then the class definition, and then #ndf. So the first file that will include rectangle.h, it will define the variables and the function. Then any file .cpp that will include rectangle.h, خلاص, it will not redefine the functions and the variables again and again. I'll give you an example. So this is it. I have this file. It includes rectangle.h. This file, it includes rectangle.h. And inside rectangle.h, I say if not defined rectangle underscore h, define rectangle underscore h, and then here it's ndf. What will happen? The first file to include rectangle.h will see, did I define rectangle underscore h ولا لا? No,
دكتور
I
لازم
didn't.
نفس النيم صح؟
نعم.
لازم نفس الاسم صح؟
يعني ايه تفصل الاسم؟
نفس اسم الدوت اتش فايل
لا لا
اللي
لا،
هو
اعمل
الاندف
اي
والدف.
حاجه تعجبك، اي حاجه، المهم اسم وخلاص.
تمام.
Okay, so the first file, it will see whether the word rectangle.h has been defined before the guard. So it will define those variable one time. Then it comes this file. It will use that file. So it will check, did I define width and height and set values and area before? Yes, I did. Then it will not redefine those variables. So it will be defined once. Okay? So
هو are there أصلا sometimes ways إن إحنا ما نكونش عايزين ندefine it كذا مرة؟ يعني ممكن يبقى في cases نبقى عايزين ندefine it.
No. It's not permitted to define it many times, Maya. You have to define the class one time. خلاص, there is no use to redefine it again and again. So you make this white things. طيب, الفايل ده is using this. Then it will define the variable width, height, and the set values and area. This file is also using rectangle.h. طيب, it was included in this file. It was included in this file. So this header guards prevents me from redefining the variables and the functions again. Okay, Maya?
Yes, thank you. And I was just asking because I was wondering طالما احنا اصلا we need to define it مرة واحدة ليه ما يبقاش اصلا as a standard defined once.
Okay.
أنا عندي سؤال.
اتفضل.
هو لازم rectangle يبقى all caps قصدي يعني اللي جنب if and if.
لا, it's recommended يا سيف يعني.
Okay.
It's recommended. Any questions يا جماعة before I go
دكتور، هو
to
انا بس في حاجه مش فاهمها، يعني ازاي not included but only one time؟ يعني مش فاهمها دي.
يعني ايه السؤال؟
هو المفروض حضرتك بتقول ان دي بتخليها انها تبقى included only once، مش كده؟
طيب ازاي؟ طيب انت فاهم الفايل ده يا محمد صح؟
فاهم.
طيب ده اول فايل. انا عندي تو فايلز بينكلودوا ايه يا محمد؟
rectangle.h.
كويس. اول فايل هيستعمل rectangle.h هو الفايل دوت. تمام؟
تمام.
طيب اول حاجه بيعملها الكومبايلر if not defined rectangle underscore h.
يعني لو هي مش defined اعمل لها define.
هيعمل لها define وهيعدي يديفاين الفاريبلز دي.
تمام.
يبقى بقت rectangle.h متعرفه وبقى الويدز والهايت وسيت فاليوز وارياز متعرفين. خلاص؟ تمام. البروجرام فايل في include rectangle.h هيجي على الفايل ده. هل الريكتانجل الكبيره دي اللي بالكابس متعرفه؟ متعرفه لان في فايل عدى عليها قبل كده يعني. طالما عدى عليها يبقى هيسكيب كل ده وهيجي عند الاند اف فهيعرف الفاريبلز مره واحده.
دي حاجه بس الكومبايلر بيعملها بس احنا مش بنشوفها.
لا انت ما بتشوفهاش طبعا.
تمام، فهمت. انا كنت بحسب ان احنا ان احنا مثلا بنعملها انكلود في مره انا فهمت، انا دلوقتي جمعت يعني
لا
جوه الكومبايلر.
بدليل ايه؟ بص هنا هتلاقي الشريط الاخضر ده هنا والشريط الاخضر ده هنا، فانا عامل لها انكلود مرتين وليس مره واحده.
انا بحسب ان الموضوع ده ينطبق علينا احنا مش الكومبايلر يعني.
لا مش على الكومبايلر.
فهمت قصدي حضرتك. تمام، شكرا يا دكتور.
طيب يا جماعه في حد متلخبط تاني؟ طيب we'll have a brief introduction to class templates. A brief introduction to class templates. I will have one friend with me. I need one friend.
I cannot.
No, you speak a lot, yeah, Muhammad. I need another friend.
I can.
Okay, برضه you speak a lot. Another friend.
I can.
So the last lady who was?
أنا معايا.
My برضه you speak too much. I need new face.
Hello.
I can.
Okay.
I can.
Who are you?
Sandra.
Sandra. Okay, Sandra. Okay. Fine. Okay. So before explaining what a class template means, I will ask you, Sandra. If you want, you have stack and queue in 106, yes?
Stack, yes.
Stack. You didn't have Q?
No, I don't think so.
Are there many students that they didn't have Qs in 106? So please write on the chat if you didn't have Qs in 106. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, whatever. Okay. So a stack is a stack is a data structure. Stack is a data structure. An array is a data structure. Yes, Sandra?
Yes.
So what will happen? So what will happen if you want to have an array of integer and an array of float? What do you do?
Do we want it to be a 1D array or a 2D array?
No, 1D array. What do you do? What will you do if you want to have an array for integer and an array for float?
Create two different arrays and declare it type integer at the beginning of the program.
Yes, and one is float, yes?
Yes.
What if you have some functions for the class that will receive an input of integer and other functions that will receive an input parameter that they are float? What do you do?
Doctor, can you repeat the question?
So the question is, if you you said that if I want to have two arrays, one that is an integer array and the other that is a float array, I define two arrays, one for integer and one for float. What if you have functions that receive functions that compute the summation of integer and another function that computes the summation of certain floats? What do you usually do, Yasandra?
We can store the summation of integers in the array of integers and the summation of float in the array of float, unless we create a calculation that will like change the data type into like if it's integer into float. Then we have to create
so basically, if you want to, thank you, Sandra. Basically, if you want to use an array of integer and to use an array of float, so you declare them twice. What if you want to do a function that sum integers and another function that sum floats? So you do two functions. So they are the same functions, but one is summing integers and the other one is summing floats. What if you have double float, integer, whatever? So if the data type was changing, so what do you do? So you define functions again and again and again, the same functions. You define the arrays again and again and again. I will give you an example about this. So this is the first array. So let's call it array of int. This is the second array. It's array of float. And this is a third array that is based on double. So this is an array of double. And I have three functions. That is sum integer, and it receives integers to be sum. The other one, sum, which is float. And it receives an input of float numbers. The third one is sum double, and we receive a double. So this is what you usually do. So I make 3 functions and they are doing the same thing, but the first one sums integer, the second one sums float number, the third one sums double. So this is nonsense. It is nonsense. So we define what's called a class. We define what's called a class template. And what is a class template? It is simply a class. It is simply a class and the functions that will work if you give them an input of integer, and will work if you give them an input of float. It will work if you give them an input of double. Let me explain it in Arabic. Let me explain it in Arabic. لو انت عندك 3 functions، اول function بتجمع integers، تاني function بتجمع float، تالت function بتجمع doubles، يبقى انت عندك 3 function بيجمعوا مجموعة ارقام، اول واحد integer، تاني واحد double float، تالت واحد double، يعني عندك 3 functions. ال3 functions دول موجودين في class. وكمان عندك 3 arrays، واحد array of integer، واحد array of double، واحد array of float. يبقى كده انا عملت 3 arrays و3 functions هما دوبليكت من بعض. عشان احل المشكله دي بستعمل الكلاس تمبلت. الكلاس تمبلت هو كونسبت قايم على اساس ايه؟ قايم على اساس ان انا بيبقى عندي كلاس جينيريك ادخل له الفانكشن، ادخل لها انتجر تجمع لي انتجر، ادخل لها فلوت تجمع لي فلوت، ادخل لها دبل تجمع لي دبل. اوكي؟ دي فكره كلاس تمبلت. So class template is based on the idea of generic programming, which means that the class functions and attributes based on how do I call them, they will act upon. If from the main I want the function to sum integer, then I can do this. If I want the function to sum float, I can do this. If I want the function to sum doubles, I can do this. I will show you an example and then خلاص we're done. So just don't bother about how do we write a class template and stuff like this. This is a class. This is simply a class that is called stack. That is called a stack. And then from the main, this is the main. I define a stack of float. Then I define a stack of integer. What does this mean? This means that I have 2 objects. The first object is what's so-called a float stack. I want a stack, consider it an array. خلاص? Just if you don't know what a stack is, we will know in the next lecture. So I want to have a stack of numbers, an array of numbers that are integers. I want to have another stack where the numbers are float. I want to have a stack where the numbers are doubles. So I actually don't define 3 classes. One for a stack of double, one for a stack of integers, one for a stack of float. I don't do this. I define a class template. And then from the main, if I want to have a stack of float, which means that all the functions that exist will operate on float numbers. Then I define a float stack. If I want a stack of integers, then I define an integer stack. I want a stack of double, I define a stack of double. So I have one class that is generic. I have one class that is generic. And then I don't have 3 classes. I don't have 3 functions. One that is work for double, one that is work for float, one that is work for integer. I don't have 3. I have one function. And then this function can accept integer at one time. This function can accept float at another time. This function can accept double at a third time. So I have one function that accepts different data type. يعني بالعربي ودي آخر حاجة هقولها. أنا عايز define stack. عن إيه؟ عبارة عن array. باخد اللي على وش الاري ده. تمام؟ طيب لو أنا عايز أعمل 3 stacks. بالطريقة التقليدية بعمل 3 classes وكل class فيه مجموعة functions. واحدة فيها الفانكشنز الانبوت بارامترز بتاعتها او الاوتبوت بارامترز بتاعتها float. فانكشن ثانية الانبوت دبل. فانكشن ثالثة الانبوت انتجر. فبعمل 3 classes. واحد class of integers، واحد class of float، واحد class of double. ده طبعا مش حاجة كويسة. فبستعمل الكلاس تمبلت ليه؟ عشان اعمل سنجل كلاس وسنجل فانكشن. الفانكشن دي ممكن تعمل الفانكشناليتي بتاعتها على الانتجرز، ممكن تعملها على الفلوت، ممكن تعملها على الدبل. All what I want you to get out of this lecture بحاجة بسيطة is this concept. How do بقى I do it really in C++? This will be the subject of next lecture. So I just want you to remember one thing before you leave. Class template, you define the class at once. You define the functions once. You define the attributes once. However, you will be using the class with different data types, with integers, with double, with float, with character, with boolean, with whatever you want. How? This will be the topic of next class, inshallah. So I'll stop at this matter. Someone told me to explain the copy constructor again. So if you wish to leave, that's your decision. Have a blessed evening. If you wish to stay to the copy constructor once again, so you are more than welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Doctor,
Yes.
Thank you, doctor.
are you gonna keep recording it?
Yes, of course, I will keep it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
دكتور هو احنا في الفيس تو فيس برضو هنقعد لحد 6:30 كده ولا 6:15 برضو؟
اللي انت تحبه يا محمد.
لا لا، أنا بس عشان
إيه،
اعمل حساب ان إن
هتفق
انا
معاك العشر دقايق دي.
الفتره الجايه يكون عندي حاجات برضو بعد الكلاس بظبطها، ف بظبط بس التايمنج.
يعني ما بين الاثنين يا محمد، يعني مرة 6:15، مرة 6:15، مرة يعني in between على حسب ما نبتدي يعني. ظبط نفسك على 6:30 عشان ترتاح. طيب القصة بتاعت الكوبي constructor. There are three types of the constructor. There are three types of the constructor. There are three types of the constructor. First, the default constructor, and second is the parameterized constructor, and third is the copy constructor. Type. The default constructor is the constructor that takes no input parameters. طيب ايه فايدة الكونستراكتور؟ فايدة الكونستراكتور that it initializes the private members of the class. Is it the same as the setter? Yes, it is the same as the setter, and no, it's not exactly the same as a setter. طيب how is it the same as a setter? So it basically initializes the private member of the class, and this is the same as a setter. طيب what do I do with the constructor? I do with the constructor that I can initialize the private members of the class when I create the object of the class. What does it mean? It means I am inside the main, and then if I have a class that is called bank account, I want to define an object from it. So the name is account1. Type. If I don't have any brackets here, then I will call the default constructor. If I have a bracket here, let's say, and I put it into it 20 and 3.0, so this is called a parameterized constructor. This is called a parameterized constructor. This is called a parameterized constructor. تمام؟ طيب أول واحد هو الديفولت constructor. It has no brackets here. The second one is a parameterized constructor. So I give it some inputs. The third one is what's so called a copy constructor. Type. Let's focus on a copy constructor. What is the purpose of the copy constructor? The purpose of the copy constructor is that I want the private member function of certain object to be equal the private member function of another object. What does this mean? Forget about shallow and deep at this moment. So if I have the class that is called bank account, and then I have one object called account1, and then another object that is called account2, then account1 and account2, they are objects that belong to the class that is called book account. تمام? Then I say account1 dot set balance 1000. So What does set balance do? Set balance actually initialize the private member variable of the class that is named balance. It gives it 1000. This class that is called bank account has an attribute that is called balance, and now account one dot set balance by 1000. It means that account one dot balance is equal to 1000. Fine. I have another object which is called account two. Up to this moment, account two dot balance is undefined. There is no value for the balance. So I make a copy constructor. How do I make it? Bank account two equal account one. What does it mean? It means that all the values for the account two, like the balance, for account one, for the balance, will be the same for account two. يعني ايه الكلام ده؟ Account one dot balance equal 1000. After the execution of this statement, account two dot balance will be equal to 1000. Before the execution of this statement, then account two dot balance will be equal to undefined. After this, what if I have more than one attribute? Let's say account one dot interest rate is equal 10.1. Then account two dot balance dot interest rate is undefined, and then after this execution, account two dot interest rate will be equal to 0.1. So the copy constructor copies the values of member variables of certain objects to be the values of another object. In this case, account one member variables balance and IR, their values 1000 and 0.1 will be the same for account two. When will this happen? When I say account two equal account one. Right. I stop at this moment 1 second. Is this understood before I continue for the shallow copy constructor and the deep copy constructor? Is it understood?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Anyone doesn't understand this part?
Doctor, I have just a quick question.
You
Now
have?
I understand the usage of a constructor that because it initializes the values.
The copy constructor?
Yes, but when I try to code it, like when I try to use it in the code, I get very lost in how the logic of it works.
Yes. This is what I will explain. Yeah, I didn't explain. Now I just explained the concept. Yeah, Ayman. I didn't explain how it will work. Yeah.
Okay.
So for the concept, you understand?
Yes, for the concept, I understand.
Okay. So let's go into some details about how it is implemented. Fine. We have two things. We have the shallow copy constructor and we have the deep copy constructor. We have the shallow copy constructor, and we have the deep copy constructor. The shallow copy constructor, you leave the job for the compiler. The shallow copy constructor, you leave the job for the compiler to do this copying. The deep copy constructor, you define a function that does the copy. So you have to remember, the shallow copy constructor, you leave the job for the compiler. The deep copy constructor, you do a function that does this copying. Type. The shallow copy constructor means that the two objects are sharing the same memory location. What does this mean? This means two things. That object 2 will be the same as object 1. This is number 1. And it means that if you change object 2 at any point of your program, object 1 will be changed. And if you change object 1, object 2 will be changed. يعني بالعربي كده هم في شقة واحدة. أي حاجة بتأثر على أي حاجة بتغير object 2 هتغير object 1. وأي حاجة بتغير object 1 هتغير object 2. ده اسمه الشالو كوبي constructor. This is defined by the compiler. طيب. Let's see how it works. So, this is a class. I call it copy constructor, call it anything on earth. It doesn't matter. And by the way, the copy constructor will exist as a function, may exist as a function in any of your application, but in any class that you have. But by coincidence, it's named copy constructor. I just make a class. The whole purpose of the class is to demonstrate the idea of the copy constructor. لكن طبعا you can use it within a class. You don't have to make a class to serve as a copy constructor. طيب. How many constructors do I have? I have one constructor. And look at this part. Look at this part. This is a normal constructor. If this part is an input, is an object that belongs to the class, then this is a copy constructor. And this will be appearing in the next discussion. Right. In the next slide. Right. We have one function, one constructor, and this is a normal constructor. Right. Let's take it step by step. Copy constructor, this is a class. C1, this is an object. And the input is a string or a character array, which is copy. Type. It will call this constructor. هو ما فيش غيره أساسا, it will call it. Then this class has one private attribute called s_copy. خلاص? All what is being done by this constructor is assigning the value of this str, which is copy, to scopy. Type. What will happen here? It will happen the following. s_copy. Sorry, the name of the object dot after the execution of this statement dot scopy is equal to copy. This will happen when? This will happen after the execution of this statement. Type. Then this is the second statement. Copy constructor C2 equal C1. طيب أول سؤال بتسأل نفسك فيه هل ده shallow copy constructor ولا ده deep copy constructor? If I have one constructor that doesn't take as an input an object to the name of the class, as will be seen in the next slide, so this is a normal constructor. So this is a normal shallow constructor. This is a normal shallow constructor. Type. When I say copy constructor C2 equal C1, did you code anything to do the copy to do a copying from C1 to C2? The answer is no. The compiler will do it for you. So this is called a shallow copy constructor. Why? Because the compiler is doing this part for you. The compiler is doing this part for you. The compiler is doing this part for you. طيب ايه اللي بيعرفني ان انا محتاج اكوبي C1 to C2? This equal sign. This equal sign. C2 equal C1. طيب this is a shallow copy constructor. A shallow copy constructor means C1 and C2 will be the same as C1, and both of them will be in the same memory location. طيب C1.display, this means what? This means that I will just see out the value of S underscore copy. يعني C1.S underscore copy is equal to copy. We C2 dot S underscore copy will be equal to copy. تمام؟ تمام. Why is it equal to the same thing? Because I have executed a copy constructor, this part. طيب يبقى C1.display copy, C2.display copy. C1.concatenate constructor. What does it do? I call the function that is called concatenate, and then strcat str to s copy. بتلزق كلمتين في بعض. يبقى constructor will be joined to copy. So s copy is copy and str is constructor. يبقى what will happen after the execution of this statement? What will happen that C1.s underscore copy will be equal to copy constructor. Automatically, what will happen? Because they are both on the same memory location, then when I say C2.display, then C2 underscore S underscore copy will be equal to copy constructor as well. Okay, is this understood? يا جماعة is this حد مش فاهم اللي أنا قلته ده؟
لا تمام يا دكتور انا كده فهمته.
طيب let's go at the deep copy constructor. The deep copy constructor, two different things. They are not located at the same memory location. So what will happen? Object 2 will be equal to object 1 just at the beginning. And then خالتي وخالتك بتفرقوا الخالات. فأنا غيرت object 2 مش هتأثر على object 1. غيرت object 1 مش هتأثر على object 2. They are both in different memory locations. So this is the first difference. The second difference that you have to write your own copy constructor. you have to write your own copy constructor. So this is the normal constructor, and this second one is a normal is a copy constructor. It looks the same. It looks the same. So the first one is C1 dot S underscore copy will be equal to copy. Then this is the execution of this statement. Then copy constructor C2 equals C1 will call this function. This constructor will call this constructor. Type. What is the input for this constructor? The input for this constructor is an object that belongs to the class name. The object is named str and the class name is named copy constructor. ادي الobject اسمه str and this one is a copy constructor. تمام؟ تمام. طيب, what will happen? It looks like يعني the same. str copy is copy. str, this is the name of the object, dot is copy. str dot s underscore copy, this is the name of the object. It copies this to s underscore copy. s underscore copy دي عايدة على C1 ولا C2؟ لا, عايدة على C2. str dot s copy, str is C1. s underscore copy عايدة على C2. So this statement is equivalent to str copy C2 dot s underscore copy and then str dot s underscore copy, which is equal to C1 dot s underscore copy. ليه؟ ادي C1 هي str. ف str dot s copy equal C1 dot str copy لcopy. After the execution of this copy constructor, then C1 dot display is copy. This is from the first statement. The second statement, C2 dot display, after C2 equals C1, it will be copy. طيب, then I will change C1 dot s copy. C2 dot s copy will not be changing. ليه؟ تفتكروا خالتي وخالتك وتفرقوا الخالات. هما ساكنين في شقق مختلفة. I change C1 dot s copy بالconcatenate function this one. This means that C1 dot display will be copy constructor. C2 dot display will remain as copy. So this is the deep copy constructor. Okay يا جماعة؟
Okay, thank you, doctor.
محمد فهمت ولا ايه القصة؟ محمد المهدي.
تمام يا دكتور.
لا, محمد المهدي مش محمد فغالي.
يس يا دكتور فهمت.
طيب, في حد مش فاهم؟ معلش, هو كونسبت صعب شوية I admit يعني. أنا نفسي خدت صعوبة إن أنا أفهمه أول مرة قريته. فمش
جديد علينا كمان.
نعم؟
جديد علينا أول مرة ناخده.
لا, ما أنت كل حاجة هتاخدها بعد كده هتبقى جديدة عليك يا محمد يعني. بس يعني جديدة بصعوبة يعني. بس ده من الكونسبت اللي مش سهلة يعني I admit يعني. يعني كونسبت الهيدر والإمبلمنتيشن والكلام ده كله. كونسبت جديد بس يعني سهل. كونسبت سهل, بتقسم فايلات. الكلاس تمبلتس برضو لما تبص عليها تلاقيها سهلة. كونسبت الكوبي كونستراكتور ده مش من الكونسبتس السهلة يعني. فأنا ملتمس لكم العذر يعني. اوكي يا جماعة؟
Thank you يا دكتور.
Thank you يا دكتور.
اوكي. يلا have a good night إن شاء الله. A good evening.
دكتور حضرتك هتنزل ريكوردنج على الشانل؟
بإذن الله بعد يا النهارده يا بكره بالكتير يعني.
تمام، حضرتك هتبعت لنا اللينك على الواتساب يعني؟